Hey guys, Mr. Morgan here with another instructional video for remote learning. Today is Wednesday, 10/7. So yesterday we finished up all of our notes for Chapter 2, Section 2, History. Today we're going to be using those notes to compile a timeline. So we did our maps in the first section for geography. We're doing a timeline for the second section of history. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So what you need to do is you need to open up the Chapter 2, Section 2 notes that we had from yesterday. There should be a second edition, so Day 2 or Part 2, and it is going to say something along the lines of Chapter 2, Section 2 timeline. Open that up and you will see something along the lines of this. So at the top, we will have our timeline. We can see all the dates going across. And then on the other side, we will have this table. So we can see that there is a section for date and a section for event. So as we go through this, we are going to see that we have a series of events that we are going to add to our timeline. We're going to put the date that it happened and then the name of the event. And then we are going to draw it out on our timeline. So I'm going to go through this with you guys. Let me open up the PowerPoint, Chapter 2, Section 2 timeline. Okay, so we're going to start with ancient civilizations. So a lot of this should be stuff that you have recognized because it's all things that we talked about yesterday. So in 2000 BC, that's our first thing, our first arrow on the far left, we have the Nubian civilizations formed in Sudan. So 2000 BC is 4,000 years ago because we have to go back 2000 to 0 and then back another 2000 for BC because BC stands for before Christ or before Common Era. So it goes all the way back to 0 and then back another 2,000 years. Another way you can think of it is 2000 BC is sort of like a negative number. So negative 2000, you would go back to 0 and then 2000 more past 0. So it's going to be way, way, way on our left. It's going to be not even on our timeline, just to the left. It's going to be the first thing that we have because it's going to be before anything else. Next thing we are going to have is the Axum civilization. So the Axum civilization was from 380 to 780. So what we need to do is draw a line from 380 to 780, which we can see as this horizontal line right here. So the Axum civilization resides along the Red Sea for these 400 years or so that they are there. These are not exact dates on a lot of these. They are fairly close so that we can get a idea of when things are happening. So our third civilization we talked about was the Bantu people. 500 AD, we can see as the second arrow on the left. 500 AD, the Bantu people migrate to southern Africa. So the Bantu people were actually around during what was about 1000 BC in Western Africa, and they existed there for a long period of time, and they grew so large that a large group of the Bantu people then left after about 1,500 years of growing and becoming a very strong, plentiful people. They moved to southern Africa and resided there for a long period of time. Our last thing for this slide, we only have 4 slides, not a whole lot, is Great Zimbabwe. So Great Zimbabwe was founded in around 1200 and then thrived and lived there and stayed there for a long period of time, trading with Eastern ports. So we have 12,000 to 14,000, 12,000 to 1,200 to 1,400, I'm sorry, 1,200 to 1,400, we have the Great Zimbabwe founded and thrives, and that is our line over here on the far right. It starts at 1,200 and goes to 1,400, so lasting 200 years. So we should have 4 lines on this. You can see each at the top. It goes, the top one on our slide is the furthest to the left, and it goes down according. Our second slide. So we talked about the ancient civilizations, and now we're going to talk about the Europeans in Africa. So this is the next big thing that happens. This is the next big stage or era in Southern and Eastern African history. In 1400, we have Portugal begins trading with Eastern Africans. So around 1400, early to mid 1400s, this starts happening. We're just going to go ahead and for ease, we're just going to say 1400. Portugal begins trading with Eastern Africa. So this is our first green line that we see on the top. It's the furthest to the left. Second, we have 1500. Portugal conquers and controls a majority of Eastern Africa. So in this 100-year span, they went from trading and starting to trade with the people of Eastern Africa to conquering and controlling a majority of the area. Next thing we're going to have is the Dutch East India Company. So in 1652, so I did 1650, you can see it's between 1600 and 1700. It's that third green line. 1652, the Dutch East India Company founds or creates Cape Town in South Africa. So in the country of South Africa, they founded a bunch of different port cities and supply posts, and a couple of these were larger than others, the largest of which, the most notable, was that of Cape Town. So what they did is they sent people there, they paid people a sum of money, sent them to live in this area and cultivate the land and create a bunch of food for sailors as they stopped by on their way to other places like India and Southeast Asia. So 1652, Dutch East India Company founds Cape Town in South Africa. Our last one is 1900. So this is the last we see of European imperialism and colonizing in the area. 1900s, Europeans colonize all of Africa. So between 1652 and 1900, we have things like the slave trade and imperialism growing. So these colonies grow in size and in number, and it all culminates in around 1900, 1914, around this area, where Europeans colonize all of Africa except for one small part. Off the top of my head, I can't remember for the life of me what this one area was, but there was one country that or territory that was not controlled by a European country. The rest of them all were controlled by some sort of European nation or empire or the United States. So 1900s or early 1900, Europeans have colonized and control all of Africa. Okay, so with a lot of Europeans colonizing all of these areas, we see this lasting for a long period of time. Like I said, 1900, all of Africa was colonized by some sort of European nation or controlled by some sort of European nation. And this would last until 1960, after World War II, when a lot of these European nations started to shed their imperial tendencies and let go of a lot of the colonies that they controlled. So in 1960, we can see Africans begin the struggle/fight for independence. I put struggle and fight because the struggle was them trying to develop something from the ground up, while the fight was them fighting back against the settlers in the area. In 1963, we can see the Kenyan Mau Mau movement successful in overthrowing British settlers. So that is our struggle for independence. One last one that we need to talk about is South African apartheid, because it was a very large deal. This was probably the most famous struggle for independence from the white minority rule in a country. So South African apartheid, 1948. Apartheid begins. What I want you to do for this one is there should only be 3 blanks left. What I want you to do is put 1948 and 1950 together because they go together very well. So what I would do is I would put 1948 and then 1950 right below it in the same box because there's not a whole lot of writing for this one. So 1948, apartheid begins. That's what you need to put down. Apartheid is the legal segregation of Black South Africans from white South Africans. Reminder, I don't want you to put the stuff in the parentheses. I just want apartheid begins. So 1950, we have the ANC, which is the African National Congress, which was a political party in South Africa fighting for Black civil rights. So the ANC was formed to fight against apartheid. So those two can fit in the same box on your worksheet. 1948, 1950, apartheid begins, and the ANC was formed to fight against apartheid. So those also go to the same arrow because they're 2 years apart. They're so close that I decided to link them both in there. 1962 to 1990, Nelson Mandela, which reminder Nelson Mandela was the leader of the ANC and was seen as a terrorist and treasonous for fighting against apartheid and the country of South Africa. So what they did is they would bomb a lot of abandoned buildings in order, one, to not hurt anyone, but two, in order to fight back against the white minority group that was segregating everything and the ones that owned a lot of these buildings. So it was a way to affect the pocket of the rich whites in the area that were propagating all of these injustices. So Nelson Mandela was sent to prison, and from 1962 to 1990, Nelson Mandela fights for freedom and equality while in prison. Our last one, 1994, Nelson Mandela is elected president of South Africa. So he was freed in 1990 by the last president before him. That last president realized a lot of the atrocities of apartheid, and with a lot of outcry from other nations, he freed Nelson Mandela in 1994 or in 1990, and then 4 years later, in the first election he was able to be in. So in 1994, Nelson Mandela was elected president of South Africa after the first full election that he was allowed to be in. And so this is when we see that the country of South Africa is finally truly independent. So moving on, this last slide that we have, I have all of the arrows from the previous slides all up on one so that you can double check everything that you need to have. What I want you to do, so you should have all of the arrows and all of the dates and events on the thing on your left. Yours will be vertical while mine is horizontal. So on the left, you should have your date and the event, and then you need to have all of these arrows. You will notice that as the events go from left to right, or for you guys top to bottom, they will correspond to each of the lines on the timeline. What I want you to do is connect these. So you can do this just by drawing a line with your stylus or whatever. I would suggest that you do the rest of the lines with like a line tool rather than drawing with your finger. It works a lot better that way. But if whatever you want to do, as long as yours looks somewhat similar to mine, and each of these lines on your timeline connects to a different event box. So with all of that done, we are done for today. What you can do now is you can begin reading for the assignment for tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to do our deep dive and research case study on Nelson Mandela. We're going to talk about him a lot more. And so what we can do is we can do some research on him now. There should be an assignment called Nelson Mandela by Bio 2. And so you can start reading the reading assigned for that, which we're going to do again. You can start it now. other than that, I think we are done. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.